For joining us. Prince Harry and his wife Meaghan, the Duchess of Sussex, earlier today arrived Nigeria's capital city, Abuja, for a 3-day visit where they will have a series of engagements with the military and non-governmental organizations, among others. They landed this morning at the Nnamdi Azikiwe International Airport. Their first engagement for today was at the Light Way Academy Abuja for a summit on mental health. At about 47 minutes after midday, they arrived at the defense headquarters where military officials and other dignitaries received the royals. Prince Harry later inspected a guard of honor. The Duke and Duchess of Sussex are also expected to travel to Kaduna State to meet wounded soldiers at the Army Reference Hospital and the Government House before returning to Abuja for other engagements. On Saturday, they will be at the Armed Forces Command Officers Mess, Abuja, for a volleyball game with Invictus athletes. The Duke and Duchess of Sussex will be in Nigeria for 3 days, and their visit will take them to 3 cities: the Federal Capital Territory, Abuja, Kaduna, and Nigeria's commercial capital, Lagos State. Earlier, we spoke to our senior reporter, Sifon Isien, who gave us an update from the defense headquarters.
The Duke and Duchess of Sussex are in a private meeting with the Chief of Defense Staff. Basically, he's in Nigeria to promote Invictus. It's a recovery game for wounded personnel of the armed forces, and 22 countries are actually participating in that game. We understand that this visit would ultimately lead to the establishment of an Invictus sports center in Abuja that will be facilitated by the Chief of Defense Staff, which we believe is one of the reasons why the private meeting is ongoing at the moment.
All right, and we now have amateur pictures of the 44 Nigerian Army Reference Hospital in Kaduna, one of the places the Duke and Duchess of Sussex are expected to visit during their time in Kaduna. They will also be hosted by Kaduna State Governor Obasani at the Kashim Ibrahim House, that's the state's seat of power. Security there has been heightened across the Military Reference Hospital and the Kaduna State Government House, with final preparations still ongoing as officials await the arrival of their royals. Those are the pictures, amateur, from Kaduna there, where the Duke and Duchess of Sussex are being expected. Senior reporter Lupe Asom sent in that, and he'll be bringing us updates on the visit when they eventually arrive Kaduna. In the meantime, Chad's military leader Mohamed Deby has been declared the winner of this week's presidential election, according to provisional results released on Thursday. The results were contested by his main rival, Prime Minister Success Masra. The national agency that manages Chad's election released results of Monday's vote weeks earlier than planned. The figures showed Mr. Deby won with just over 61% of the vote, with the runner-up, Masra, falling far behind with over 18.5% of the vote. Gunfire erupted in the capital following the announcement. Chad held its long-delayed presidential election following 3 years of military rule, a vote that analysts widely expected the incumbents to win. Deby Itno, also known as Muhammad Idris Deby, seized power after his father, who spent 3 decades in power, was killed fighting rebels in 2021. The oil-exporting country of nearly 18 million people has not had a free and fair transfer of power since it became independent in 1960 after decades of French colonial rule. Now, mediation talks involving South Sudan's government and opposition representatives have started in Kenya's capital, Nairobi. Kenyan President William Ruto launched the talks between parties in South Sudan's peace process, calling for their strong commitment to achieving sustainable peace. In March, South Sudan's President Salva Kiir requested his Kenyan counterpart William Ruto to spearhead mediation efforts ahead of South Sudan's elections planned for December 2024. During the formal launch of the talks, Mr. Ruto said 8 categories of parties and groups will participate in the dialogue. Kenya has appointed former Army Commander Lazaro Sumbeiwo and Ambassador Muhammad Ali Guyo to lead the talks. And talking about the situation in Kenya, the number of people who have lost their lives in the devastating floods and landslides triggered by heavy rains since March has risen to 238. The government made the announcement, and government spokesman Isaac Mwawura said 8 more people lost their lives in the raging floods. Mr. Mwawura said 47,000 households are displaced, while a total of 286,011 people have been impacted by the heavy rains and flooding across the country. He said the government is committed to safeguarding the lives of those affected and is in the process of setting up houses to accommodate the displaced people. Meanwhile, some parts of the country remained cut off and inaccessible after roads and bridges were washed away, marooning thousands of residents, disrupting businesses across the country, and forcing the indefinite postponement of school reopening.
Citing heavy rainfall across the country, catching many parents unawares.
Let's now talk about the Israel-Hamas war. The Middle East, the Rafah's medical facilities have been overwhelmed. Medics say more than 1 million people sheltering in the southern Gazan city are at risk of being deprived of health care after the Israeli military began a limited operation against Hamas on its eastern outskirts on Monday. Meanwhile, Benjamin Netanyahu has vowed Israel can stand alone after the U.S. warned arms shipments could be stopped if he orders a full-scale invasion of Rafah in Gaza. Thousands of people have already fled the southern city after the Israeli military began what it called a limited operation. U.S. President Joe Biden has repeatedly warned against the operation, saying it would cross a red line. But Mr. Netanyahu dismissed the U.S. warning, saying Israel would fight on. There is more in the following reports.
The medical system in Gaza's southernmost city, Rafah, has plunged into a severe crisis following Israeli airstrikes, leaving only one hospital struggling to operate amidst a shortage of medical supplies. Israel's military said on Monday night that it was carrying out large-scale airstrikes in Rafah. The airstrikes have not only forced numerous local residents to flee and severely hampered the transportation of humanitarian aid, but also resulted in the closure of Abu Yusuf al-Najjar Hospital, one of Rafah's 2 major hospitals. Consequently, the Kuwait Hospital has become the sole medical institution in the city with a population of more than 1 million. However, with only dozens of sick beds, the hospital is facing significant challenges in handling the overwhelming influx of injuries. Director of the Kuwait Hospital, Shuaib Al-Hams, noted on Thursday that the hospital's 4 reserves could only sustain its operation for a maximum of 3 days, saying that the power supply system of the hospital is likely to be paralyzed thereafter. Israel's army announced on Wednesday that it was continuing its ground operations on Gaza, reporting approximately 30 casualties since the offensive began on Monday night. According to an army statement, the 30 casualties were militant, while Gaza's health officials reported about 35 deaths, including a 4-month-old baby.